Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to go back to Penny Dreadful because there's a new season out. So new season means new cards, new decks, new fun things to explore. A whole new format with all sorts of nonsense. Let's dive in. I'm going to give you an overview of the new cards, the possible decks that might come out, and I'm just going to give you a quick introduction to this new Penny Dreadful season. For those of you that might not know what Penny Dreadful is, here's a quick introduction. I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you want to learn more about the format, just check out the description. There's a link there, and that will tell you all you need to know. It's a Magic Online format, so it's only played on Magic Online. It's the best budget format. In my mind, it's the best budget format by far. The way that the format works is that every rotation, so whenever a new set comes out, all the cards that are on Magic Online are checked. And then if they are below 2 cents for the better part of a week, they are legal to play with. And that results in like a card pool of like over 12,000 cards. And it's not just crappy cards. You would be surprised to see how much power there is in cards that are 2 cents online. It's a brewer's paradise because you can just easily make a deck. It's not going to cost you that much money. If it doesn't work, too bad. You just move on to the next best thing. And like I said, the card pool is huge. There's a lively community. There's an awesome website that holds all sorts of metagame information. You can sign up for leagues on the website. And then there's a bot on Magic Online that automatically records the result of your league games. There's a Discord community that's very active and a ton of fun. Lots of great people there. And then lastly, there are free tournaments with prizes. You heard that. You don't need to pay to enter these tournaments, but you can still win tickets because they are sponsored. So that's a great way to just earn back the money, the very little money that you needed to spend on building your decks for this format. So please do check it out. Now, for those that are familiar with Penny Dreadful, here's the more exciting stuff. There is some new cards in Penny Dreadful that never have before been legal. I'm not going to list them all, but here are some ones that caught my attention and I'm sort of excited about. First off, Fires of Invention. This card has been banned in Standard. I think it's been banned in Historic as well. It's sort of a mana doubler because you just get to cast spells for free. But in a way, it's a mana tripler because you can still use the mana that you have available to use on activated abilities and whatever. This will be one of the cards that I will be brewing with the most. I'm not sure it's the actual best thing because it is kind of slow. It's a 4-mana enchantment. But this seems like a ton of fun and I'm excited. Next up, Counterspell. For you Counterspell lovers, this is in. We've had Mana Leak, we've had other Counterspell variants, but never Counterspell itself. People have been dying to get this into Modern, but it's in Penny Dreadful now. Lingering Souls. I love me some Graveyard Shenanigans. I love Flashback. Lingering Souls is just a great card. Can help your slow, grindy, dirly deck survive against the aggro decks, and it can also be a nuisance for control deck. Then Hero of Precinct 1, making more tokens. This can go into some sort of mid-rangey shell that wants to put some early pressure and make some blockers. Sort of like a young Pyromancer that you have to do a little bit more work for. Seems like a cool card. If you are worried about all those 1/1s from Lingering Souls in the Hero, there's a Goblin Chain Whirler that can just clean house. It will shoot down all the mana dorks as well. This card was a Scourge in Standard, and I'm sure it will show up in Penny Dreadful as well. Speaking of standard scourges, here's Reflector Mage. This card has been banned in Standard and has also been able to stay afloat in a format as powerful as Modern. So don't sleep on this. Then there's Fauna Shaman. I love Survival of the Fittest. This is not Survival of the Fittest, but it is a tutor on a stick, and I love tutoring. I love toolboxes, so another card I'm excited to play with. Ad Nauseam for you combo players. I'm not sure if there's an Ad Nauseam deck, but if there is, I'm sure someone will find it. Combo players rejoice. Ad Nauseam is in. For the people that like Planeswalkers, Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord is in. This combined with maybe Lingering Souls or some other creatures could actually be quite decent. Kind of like a more mid-rangey value game plan. Yeah, Sorin is just a cool Planeswalker. And there's some snowlands that are in, just the mountains and the plains, but Arkham's Astrolabe is also there, so there is some potential for some multicolor shenanigans. There's also some other snow sources, so a card that's also been banned in Modern. I think it's been banned in Legacy too, but yeah, it's in Penny Dreadful now. So more Rally the Ancestors. Great card in its standard day, and I've already seen some people doing some cool things with this. There's a red-white equipment combo deck. Hakon, that's a card I'm excited to play with. I love me some Graveyard Shenanigans, so for the Johnnies out there, there's Hakon. Jace Memory Adept, another big Planeswalker. Not the best Jace, but we'll have to make do. Giganto the Wellspring. Companions have already been part of Penny Dreadful, and there's more than ever this season. Then Martyr of Sands, this has been a deck in Modern for the longest time. I'm not sure if it has the tools needed to also be competitive in Penny Dreadful, but I'm sure people will try it, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. For some reason, these Walking Dead cards are also legal in Penny Dreadful, at least some of them. Yeah, if you're a fan of Walking Dead and you want to play with those cards, you can do that here too. And you don't need to buy one of those overpriced secret lairs. Kazandu Mammoth, just a nice stompy green card. I've seen this thing do some stuff in Standard, and I'm curious to see if it can stand out in Penny Dreadful as well. Pack Rat, Scourge of Standard again. It's legal here, so if you just want to pack rat some people, you can. Experimental Frenzy, the card advantage red machine. I'm curious where this ends up. Maybe it's in an aggressive red deck, or maybe there's some sort of combo shell out there. And then finally, Deploy the Gatewatch. I'm not convinced that this is good, but I'm sure I will try, and I'm sure other people will try too. And then we'll find out if Collected Company for Planeswalkers is actually good enough for Penny Dreadful. I'm doubtful, but I definitely want to try. Now, there's many more never before legal cards that are also good, but I can't name them all. So moving on to some former all-stars and cards that have proven themselves in Penny Dreadful to be good there and are back again. There's Dark Ritual, just insane mana production. Hymn to Torok, very annoying. I'm not sure I'm happy that this is back, but I know people love this card. So if you're a fan of hymning your opponent, then yeah, rejoice. Treasure Cruise, if you're not a fan of getting hymned, Treasure Cruise is a perfect answer to Hymn to Torok. Just 1 mana, draw 3, that seems powerful. Gitaxian Probe, if you're not able to fill your graveyard fast enough with Treasure Cruise, then Probe can help. Elvish Archdruid, if you're more a fan of the green man, just great mana production, nice lord. Price of Progress, if you just want to get them dead, is more than equipped to do so. Chain Lightning, more burn, 1 mana, 3 damage, nothing more to be said. Siege Rhino, if you like gaining 3 life and making your opponent lose 3 and having a big 4/5 trampler, you can copy it, you can clone it, you can reanimate it, you can tutor for it, you can do whatever, you can make all the Siege Rhinos you want, if you want. And then Metalwork Colossus, another fan favorite from seasons past. There's some ways to put in 4 of these on 1 turn, and I'm sure people will be doing so. Parallax Wave, this card has proven itself to be quite good. It's been, I think, one of the best decks for a couple of seasons, and I'm sure it will be good again this season as well, so don't sleep on that. Stinkweed Imp for your dredge cards. If you want to play with the graveyard, Stinkweed Imp is a nice tool. Cloud Post, if you just want to make a bunch of mana and are more of a Tron player. Brave the Elements, if you're more of an aggressive white beatdown guy, then Brave is always good and has been good in Penny Dreadful for many seasons. Jeskai Ascendancy, if you just want to combo out, this is always a nice deck also, and it's still there. Pyromancer Ascension, if you want to combo but in a different way, Pyromancer Ascension is there for you. Frantic Search, more combo cards. This has been amazing in every season that it's been legal, I think, and I'm sure it will do crazy, absurd, and powerful things again. Birds of Paradise, if you just want to ramp. Next to birds, there's also a bunch of elves that are legal, so 1 mana dorks are not in short supply. Mystical Teachings for the control lovers, a great value card, very slow and early, but if you think you can play fast enough, then you can try a Mystical Teachings deck. And Reanimate for the ones that just want to get a big fatty from the graveyard into play. And then there's Phyrexian Dreadnought, and this was actually the card that won the last big Penny Dreadful 500 tournament. Stifling it or cloning it and doing some nonsense with it on the stack to get a cheap 12/12 for 1 mana has proven to be very good in many seasons, and I'm sure it will be good again this season as well. And then moving on to the lands. Lands are always an important part of playing Magic. Historically, the lands in Penny Dreadful haven't been the greatest, but that's about to change because this season we got all the check lands. So that means that every color combination now has an untapped duel. Yeah, one of the things that I always hated about Penny Dreadful was the mana situation. Sometimes there were some untapped duels, but not always, and it just feels bad to have to play with all tap lands or have to play a monocolored deck. So I'm glad these are legal, and they're going to be helped by the following set of cards. That is the Snow Duels, because they have a basic land type. So it will make it a lot easier to make like 3-color decks. Yes, these will come in tapped, but it does make your check lands come in untapped. So that means that not all of your duels come in tapped, and that's just a great feeling. And then to complement this, there's also 3 of the cycling lands that are also legal. Those also have a basic land type, and I expect these to show up as well. Then more lands. There's some show lands that you need to show a type of land, and then this comes in untapped. Not the greatest, but maybe playable, and these will also be helped by the previous set of lands that we discussed, the dual lands with actual basic land types. Some other untapped lands are Llanowar Waste and Yavimaya Coast. These don't require too much of you, they just cost you life. For black, green, and blue-green, there's a ton of good options. Then there's another set of tools that I would like to talk about, and that's the man lands. These are just great value, and yeah, they fix your mana and also provide you with some additional threats in the late game. I'm especially amazed that a card as powerful and strong as Raging Ravine is legal, but not all of the 10 man lands are legal, but these are, and I expect these to show up quite a bit. All of the temples are also legal. These are just tap lands, but they do provide you with a little bit of card selection, so some decks might want these. And then if you are really on 3 colors, then you can also just play the tri-lands of your associated tricolor combination. Now that we've looked at some individual cards, let's look at some initial decks that are starting to pop up and have people excited. The first one is Hermit Druid combo. People have been saying that this is the best deck, it's going to be insane, and it's just very strong. I think it will be strong. I'm not sure it's going to be the best deck. That all just depends on the rest of the metagame, but let's have a look at how this deck works. First off, it's all about Hermit Druid, a 2-mana 1/1. You can pay a green and tap it, reveal cards from the top of your library into reveal a basic land, put that card into your hand, and all the other revealed cards into your graveyard. So the way you build your deck is you just have no basic lands in there. And that means that whenever you activate this, you just mill all the cards in your deck. When you do that, you get back 3 Narcomoebas that are in your deck, and you mill over a Dread Return. So the Narcomoebas come into play, you have enough creatures to use the Dread Return. You're gonna Dread Return Angel of Glory's Rise, and that's gonna reanimate a Zombie and Laboratory Maniac. That gives you 2 humans that you can tap to draw a card and win on the spot with the Laboratory Maniac. So that's how the combo works. Then there's some tools for this combo. First off, you need to have lands that are not basics. Now with the Yavimaya Coast, the Llanowar Waste, and Centaur Garden and Okina, you have some green untapped lands. Previously, Hermit Druid has been legal, and then the trouble was that sometimes you could just not play enough untapped lands. And with these lands, that becomes a lot easier and it speeds up your combo. Then Fauna Shaman is a good way to find a Hermit Druid. Traverse the Ulvenwald could potentially also do that. I'm not sure if Traverse is good enough. It's a little bit awkward that this card lets you search for a basic, and you most likely don't want to play too many of those, or actually none. But maybe there's a version of this deck that just plays 1 basic and that still works. We'll find out, but Traverse is a tutor, and that's always something to watch out for. One card that has already started showing up is Neoform. This can help you circumvent some graveyard hate by finding your Laboratory Maniac first. You can use a mana dork to go find a Hermit Druid. I think this card is what really makes the deck resilient, is Postmortem Lunge. You can reanimate a creature with this and it gains haste, and it gets exiled at the beginning of the next end step. But that's perfect because you just want to reanimate your Hermit Druid and then immediately activate it. And the nice thing about this is, first they will kill your Hermit Druid, so you didn't get to untap with it, didn't get to do your combo. And then when you use Postmortem Lunge, they can't really use removal on it, so they need to have different tools to beat you. This is a big card for the resiliency and power of this deck. Without it, I'm not sure it would be as good, but with this, I think it's a very good and nice tool to fight through some main deck removal. Now, if you want to fight this deck, then these are the cards I would look at. Weathered Runestone is sort of like a Grafdigger's Cage. Nihil Spellbomb is just graveyard removal. Ravenous Trap is also graveyard removal, and Sorcerer's Spyglass is a way to name Hermit Druid so they can't activate Hermit Druid. Now, what I would say is that if you can try and mix up your graveyard hate, if all of your graveyard hate is the same thing, then it's a lot easier for an opponent to fight through that. Maybe there's also some creatures that can exile cards from the graveyard. Then they need to have an answer to an artifact. They need to have an answer to maybe a Ravenous Trap in your hand, so they need a discard spell. And it becomes a lot harder for them to sideboard against your hate. If you're just on one plan, then it's a lot easier to just put in some artifact hate and be done with it. And then you're likely to lose. But if you have Nihil Spellbomb and Ravenous Trap, then they need to start hedging, and you have a good shot at winning. So moving on to the next deck, Mono White Quest. The way this works is you have Quest for Holy Relic, a 1-mana enchantment. Whenever you play a creature, a counter goes on, and whenever you have 5 counters on it, you can sacrifice it and go find an equipment. You play this and then you play Ornithopter, Memnite, Endless One. You have Glinthawk to bounce your Ornithopter or your Memnite. You try and build up Quest for the Holy Relic to 5 counters as quickly as you can. And then you go get Argentum Armor and just blow up some lands or whatever. There's tons of other cards you could see playing in this shell, but this is kind of the basic of it. And I expect to see this deck show up. If you're a fan of a deck like Quest, then have a look at it, start researching some more cards. Maybe you want Squadron Hawks for a little bit more late game value, but this is definitely a deck that you could consider playing. And then 8-Whack. For the first time ever, we have Goblin Bushwhacker and Reckless Bushwhacker. Play a bunch of creatures, then play one of these and pump all your guys and give everything haste. There's 2 ways to go about this. One is with goblins, Mog War Marshal, Mog Fanatic, Foundry Street Denizen, and even Goblin Pile Driver. Maybe throw in some lords and you can go off that way. Or you can go a little bit more all-in combo-y, again with Ornithopter, Memnite, Golgotha Rebirth, maybe even Devastating Summons, or just more traditional 1-drops, and just try and get your opponent dead as quickly as possible. So 8-Whack is another option for you aggressive players out there that don't just want to play straight up mono red. And from 8-Whack we go to 8-Post. This is a classic Penny Dreadful deck. Whenever the combination of Glimmer Post and Cloud Post is legal, this deck is usually viable. You have those lands to make a lot of mana and gain a lot of life. And then you have Sylvan Scrying, Expedition Map, and also Ancient Stirrings to find you lands. There are some value lands that you can get, and Ancient Stirrings can get you the threats as well. And the threats for this season are likely Mere Battlesphere, but also Sundering Titan is legal for the first time, I think. This is a decent creature against a lot of the multicolor decks that are bound to show up. So if you're a fan of just ramping and putting out big things, then maybe try 8-Post. Then next up is Azorius Wave. I already mentioned that Parallax Wave is legal. And yeah, this deck has always been quite good, has performed very well. It's very good at beating up on mid-range and creature decks, and I expect it to do the same this season. So the way that this plays is you play some value creatures like Elite Guard Mage, Riftwing Cloudskate, Champion of Wits, and some life gain dudes. Just enter the battlefield creatures and draw you cards, gain you life, and interact with the board. And then you also have some generic control cards like Oblivion Ring and Shadow the Sky to wipe the board. And you pair those with Fidelkan Mastermind and Nevermaker. And those are ways to put Parallax Wave back on top of your deck and keep the loop going and just exile all of your opponent's stuff. Yeah, basically forever. So this is a nightmare deck for creature decks to face. And this is usually a pretty decent deck at the beginning of the format when a lot of people are playing aggro decks. Don't sleep on this. This is a proven deck from many seasons. And then we come to my personal favorite, Fires of Invention. I already talked about this card. I'm super excited to play with this. Lots and lots of different ways to play fires. I'm going to talk about multiple different angles you could take to this deck, but let's just look at some options. There's Drawn from Dreams, nice card draw spell. It digs you 7 cards deep for 2 cards. You want some card advantage in this deck so you can keep double spelling with fires, and this goes pretty deep. And it's conveniently 4 mana, so you can play fires and immediately play this. This is done in Standard and I think in Pioneer as well. Escape to the Wilds. What I like about this with fires is that on turn 5 you can play this. You can play an extra land, so you go to 6 and then potentially you could play a 6-drop. And it gives you that card advantage to keep double spelling. And Sweltering Suns, this is more of a removal spell and a sweeper, but the nice thing here is that it's a cycling card. So if you don't need it, you can just cycle it away. And because you don't need to pay mana when you have fires out, the cost of cycling for 3 is not that big of an issue. Sphinx of Foresight, this is shown up in Fires deck in Standard. You can use it to find your fires, and then afterwards, again, this is a 4-drop. You can immediately play it and then keep scrying to put away lands and find more spell. Sphinx of Lost Truth, another Sphinx, but this one is interesting because it has kicker. So you can play it for 5, but then you still have mana available to pay the kicker cost. So you actually get to draw 3 cards and keep them. Josu Ves is another kicker card. This one has kicker 6, so I'm not sure how viable it is, because usually what you want to do is play fires on turn 4 and then immediately play something, or the next turn you want to play the big thing. I'm not sure you want to wait until turn 6 to do this. It's an interesting synergy with kicker. And Soul of Innistrad, this is another mana sink. Maybe there's a more graveyardy fires deck where you use Commune with the Gods to go find Fires of Invention, mill over Soul of Innistrad, and then get the value from Soul of Innistrad. maybe it's an interesting option. Another card I saw suggested was Riku of 2 Reflections. This is a 5 mana 2/2, so this is kind of risky, but when you play Riku, you then immediately get to play a spell and copy it. So there is some fun to be had with this. I'm not sure how competitive and good this is, because it is a 5 mana 2/2 and it dies to a Stiff Breeze, but it could be fun. Let's look at some more options. Well, Mastermind's Acquisition and Fae of Wishes are also legal. So these cards allow you to dig into your sideboard and find silver bullets. And some of the silver bullets are Casualties of War, Slaughter Games, Out of the Sky, Thought Distortion. So yeah, you can just build a wish board that you have access to in game 1. And that's a pretty powerful thing to have. You can also find like a graveyard hate spell against the Hermit Druid deck, or another sweeper against aggro. So that is definitely something that people will be doing, and I'm expecting Fae of Wishes to show up for sure. Looking at some more different builds, Fire Super Friends is something that I'm considering. So you can play some of the oaths. You can play Oath of Liliana, Oath of the Fairy. The Deploy the Gatewatch maybe even could fit into this deck. I think Oath of the Fairy especially is interesting. You can use it to have double activations of your planeswalkers, but you can also play it as your second spell on a turn. Blink Fires of Invention. That will come back at the end of your turn, enabling you to play even more spells that turn. So that is a kind of cool synergy. And then you just have a random assortment of planeswalkers like Ajani, Liliana, Chandra, and especially Sarkhan, because Sarkhan can turn all of your planeswalkers into dragons and fly over to kill your opponent. Another cool idea I had was to pair fires with Astral Slide and Astral Drift, and maybe even Lightning Rift to make FIRESLIDE. The way that this would work is you play one of these enchantments and you can keep cycling while also still playing spells. Normally with Astral Drift and Astral Slide, you want to cycle, but you also want to play stuff, and you don't have the mana to do everything. But with Fires, you do, and that could be interesting. For example, you can have Eternal Dragon in your graveyard, you can return it on your upkeep and still cycle as well. That makes all of that a little bit easier. You can cycle Decree of Justice, still make a bunch of tokens while playing other spells. You can play Tilling Tree Folk, cycle away all of those lands that you are getting back. Stonehorn Dignitary is also a big part of this deck, because that can lock out aggressive decks. This is a very rough idea, but it is an interesting one. So I've talked about some decks, and there's much more to explore in this season. I hope you found this a little bit informative and fun, and it maybe got you some ideas of your own. I'd also like to ask you to cast your vote. What would you like to see me play as the first deck this season? I can play the Hermit Druid deck. I can try and build a version of Fires, whatever version I think is the best. Or I can channel my inner Johnny and go and play something with Hakan. I love graveyard decks and I'm always excited to brew these. So leave a comment saying which one of these decks you would like to see me play. I hope you found this a little bit informative. I hope you are as excited about kicking off Penny Dreadful Season 19 as I am. I wish you a ton of fun, and I hope to see you for the next videos.